let's begin our conversation. It's a great topic about imperialism and the current conflicts in the world. So, what exactly is imperialism? What's the meaning? Is this a natural phenomenon in huge states? Oh, let's start with the first question, with the first part. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so imperialism, an imperialist country is always a capitalist country. And imperialism arises when the largest corporations and billionaires in a capitalist country start having trouble finding enough customers or enough resources to keep their profits up. So they control the government, and they get the government to basically dominate and use the resources of other countries in order to keep these corporations and billionaires wealthy and help them get even more wealthy. Imperialism is basically caused by the richest and most powerful people inside the imperialist country. And they compete with other imperialists. For example, right now, the United States imperialists and our government, which they control, are competing with German imperialists, German government. So we destroyed Nord Stream 2 pipeline in order to prevent Germany from cooperating economically with Russia and make Germany and German industry dependent on higher price, higher cost American liquefied natural gas. So our natural gas corporations made more money. The Russians had to find other customers for their energy, which they did. And Germany was the loser, the biggest loser, because their energy prices went way up, and their manufacturing corporations were harmed. Some of them went out of business. And now some German companies are considering moving their factories to the United States and other countries. But they want to move their factories toward the country that destroyed their industry. So it's a form of domination. And it comes about because of economic competition.
So it's about economic competition. It's not, is it natural phenomenon in huge states?
It's a kind of natural tendency in capitalist countries. Socialist countries tend never to be imperialistic. And so today we hear frequently in our media that, oh, Russia wants to conquer Ukraine, all of Ukraine wants to conquer Poland and the Baltic states, and then keep on going westward until they conquer Germany and France, and maybe they'll stop at the English Channel. And that is completely false. I've never seen any indication that Russia wants to expand and increase the amount of territory it controls. Russia is already the largest, geographically, the largest country in the world. They don't need any more space. they don't need any more resources. They have all the resources they need, and well, and some specialized things that they don't have, they can get by trading with other countries in Asia and elsewhere in the world. So Russia is not run by its large corporations. It's not, I mean, it's a capitalist country, but it's not an imperialist one, because it's focused on developing its own economy, just like China and India are. And it has absolutely no motive to conquer Eastern Europe or Western Europe. That's just a fantasy that our media and foreign policy experts like to throw around, and they want to make the American people afraid of the aggressive Russians. But it's a lie. It's false.
So I guess that's the difference between imperialism and capitalism. That's what you've said right now.
Well,
There's the difference.
So not okay. Imperialism is always capitalist. It's always caused by capitalist countries, or in the a few centuries ago, mercantilism was and colonialism. That was the old style imperialism. Britain and Netherlands and France and Spain would all go around conquering places and basically taking their resources. But not all capitalist countries are imperialists. And the example here is Russia. It's a capitalist country now, but they keep their billionaires under control. They don't allow them to run the entire government, which we do in America and in Britain and Germany and France. The billionaires are in control. The capitalist class is in control. In Russia, the capitalist class is somewhat under control. I believe that Vladimir Putin, when he came to power in around the year 2000, kind of set forth the rules to his oligarchs, to his capitalists. Do what's right for the Russian people and for the defense of Russia, or we're going to stop you. We're not going to let you become. I mean, you can have a lot of money, but if you try to meddle in politics, we're going to prevent that. We may throw you in jail. We may break up your companies and so on. So Russia has it somewhat under control. China has their billionaires even more under control. They don't let them get out of line. And the basic policy is do what the people need, produce what they need, and stay out of politics, and you'll be okay.
Thank you for a good example. Now I get it.
Okay.
Does the imperial idea imply unequal connections between the core and periphery?
Unequal. Did you say unequal?
Unequal, yes.
Yes, right. The core wants to be dominant. Definitely in economics. And not all imperialist countries are identical. Some of them don't care about their colonies or their vassals. internal politics, and some of them do. The United States seems to want to run everybody's life in our colonies. But other imperialists don't care, as long as the resources keep flowing from the periphery to the core. And it's not the core, it's not the American people who benefit from imperialism, it's the billionaires and the corporations. I don't gain anything by having the United States controlling what's left of Ukraine, controlling Poland, controlling Germany, France. I don't get anything out of that. Regular people don't benefit, but the capitalist class benefits.
From your perspective, does imperialism is detrimental in today's world?
I think it's the worst thing in the world. It's the cause of all our wars. It's incredibly detrimental. It's right now, the war in Ukraine is threatening to go nuclear. Russia has said many times, if Russia, the country, is being threatened with destruction or large-scale terrorism, large-scale military attacks, missile attacks, they will feel that they have to use nuclear weapons. And they've said that if that happens, that they would use them. Right? We're the closest to a nuclear war in human history ever. Even the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was not as dangerous as the situation today. So yeah, it's terribly detrimental. It harms almost everybody. As I said, keeping a huge military does not benefit the American people, working people. So it's detrimental. Just trying to dominate the world is detrimental to everyone. And if they cause a nuclear war, that could be the end of humanity forever.
And how do you feel about these ongoing military conflicts in the world?
They all have to stop. We have the United Nations, founded in 1945, just as World War II ended. And its purpose was to prevent World War III, prevent anything as terrible as World War II from ever happening again. And the fundamental principle of the United Nations is non-aggression. No country may invade another, basically. Territory may not be acquired through the use of force. And that has been its stated purpose from 1945 until today. The problem has been that the United States was the most powerful country in 1945 and pretty much dominated everything, economically, militarily, culturally. We were exporting our educational system and all kinds of, our media has a huge influence in the rest of the world, even today. And so the United States took control of the United Nations to a large extent, not completely, but they prevented the United Nations from fulfilling its purpose, which was to give every country one vote in the General Assembly and end domination and end in aggression. So the United States has been the worst violator of the UN Charter from 1945 till today. And that currently there's a movement in the world to expel the United States from the UN. And of course, that would entail moving the headquarters out of New York to some other country, and preventing, that would allow the countries of the world to fulfill the purpose for which the UN was founded in 1945.
I think it wasn't all the time like that about United States, speaking about that country. Well, in my view, I think it was in, I don't know when, perhaps in which years ago, but I think it was considered like a prosperous nation. It was, I guess, till one moment when they got too greedy, I guess.
Well, it's the nature of capitalism and capitalists to never stop, to never say we have enough. Capitalism by its nature is greedy. And so, one could argue about exactly when the United States changed from a member of the international community, right? We were that in the 1940s. I think when the United States started the Korean War in 1950, that was a major break from the UN Charter. And I think at that point, we became an aggressive, expansionist, imperialist power. Then on to Vietnam, where the same pattern was simply repeated and intensified. There were various overthrows of governments such as Cuba, Central America in the 1980s. And then, let's see, and the Gulf War happened in Iraq in 1991. And there, the object was pretty clearly to control the oil of the Middle East. That's basically pure imperialism in its its most obvious sense. And then the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan in 2003, 2002, pure imperialism. Just as President Trump said a few years ago when he was in power, we wanted the oil. We're keeping Syria's oil too. That's almost colonialism, old style. So, it's been a gradual process, but the United States is now the worst imperialist country in the world, and it's very dangerous because the rest of the world is not going to allow that to happen. They're going to resist having their people impoverished or bombed or killed, and they are resisting. And so we have the rise of BRICS and other groupings of countries that are trying to somehow limit the power of the United States to dominate everybody.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we're facing right now. But is it feasible to see the end of those conflicts in the near future?
I think it's feasible. I think it's possible. Israel, I think, has just gone so extreme and so violent that I don't think Israel will survive for very long as a Zionist state in Palestine. I think Israel is going to, I mean, it's a Jewish population may become tired of hiding in bomb shelters from, coming from Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, possibly. A lot of them are going to leave. Israel's economy will collapse. The United States, I think, is running out of money and running out of weapons. And I think there's a pretty strong peace movement beginning to form in the United States. If the peace movement succeeds and cuts off all military aid to Israel, that's it. Game over for them. So that aspect of Western imperialism, the unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East, as some of our politicians like to call Israel, will not be around for much longer. And the United States itself, we're facing an economic crisis. We can't pay interest on our debts to huge multinational banks. We're sanctioning everybody. When the United States sanctions somebody, it usually harms the American people by increasing inflation here. We're saying, no, we won't buy any of your oil. So they sell it somewhere else. Russia hasn't been harmed very much by all of these unbelievable number of sanctions. They backfired. And so our economy is teetering on the edge of collapse. Financial crisis, it could start on Wall Street, could have a big, another stock market crash like 1929, 1930. That could easily happen any day. So, right, our current path is unsustainable. So, if we, we may not be able to pay our troops if the value of the dollar collapses. If we can't pay the troops, they stop being troops, and they try to fend for themselves. They come back to this country, and there are no jobs. Anyway, it's very unsustainable, unstable right now. So, if all of that were to happen, there would be peace in the world, I hope.
Oh yeah, they're actually so close to the financial collapse, I think.
Yeah,
It is
very
close.
close.
Is there an optimum recipe for the peace, for the world peace?
Okay, that's a big question.
It's sort of tough.
Well, it's very large scale. So I think what the
We have to cook we
the
have to make up a recipe. And
I think the BRICS countries have the recipe, have a really good recipe. What they're doing is trying to cooperate with each other, and the number of countries in BRICS is rather quickly expanding, and make themselves less vulnerable to the United States and the EU. So the rest of the world has a pretty clear strategy, and they are pursuing it in a competent and effective way. strategy for the United States is basically to reverse all of our current policies. Get rid of all of the neocons who currently dominate Washington, D.C. Neocon is basically an imperialist who believes that United States may use any amount of force and violence to get what it wants. That's a neocon. There are no limits. We don't have to obey the law. UN Charter, forget about it. That's the neocon attitude. A really good example, a couple of examples of American neocons are Lindsey Graham, the senator, who says, well, let's just bomb them. John McCain when he was alive. And today, Nikki Haley, who talks the same way. Well, we rule, we're number one, we have the biggest military, let's just bomb them. That's a neocon. So we get rid of all of them and start, putting some limits on our military industrial complex. We don't need these weapons to defend the 50 states. For one thing, we don't have anybody who's threatening to invade our country. We don't have any enemies. So our whole military is designed to attack and dominate other countries. That policy has to be reversed. And, an economic collapse may help us to realize that we can't afford to try to dominate the world. It's impossible. We can't do it anymore. So why try? So, I'm kind of optimistic that might happen, but it might require a collapse in order to wake people up.
I think we should add some humanity, kindness in that recipe, compassion,
That would be
and
great.
that would work actually.
That would help a lot. The thing about corporations is they don't have humanity. They're legally set up to maximize profit, and so a company, a hypothetical company that cares about humanity and morals and ethics may be outcompeted by some other corporation that doesn't care about those things. So that capitalism is really the core of the problem, especially corporate capitalism. Humanity is not allowed.
So how exactly can politicians avert military conflicts? If they want to, I guess. If they would want it to, I guess they could
Well,
avert
yeah,
them.
okay. If they want to. Well, I mean, first they have to realize that a military, large-scale military conflict, for example, sending U.S., French, German, Polish troops into Ukraine to fight the Russians, that could easily lead to everybody dying. They have to realize that there are very serious consequences to our current warlike policies. Ukraine is running out of cannon fodder. We can't use Ukrainians anymore to do our fighting for us. And I don't know. I think the American people are starting to realize it faster than the people in Washington are. They're kind of like the last people to figure it out. American people are tired of wars. The war in Ukraine recently became more Americans are opposed to more weapons being sent to Ukraine. So more than half. We're now a majority anti-war in Ukraine country. And the problem, so one of the problems is that the people do not make policy here. We're not a democratic republic. We claim to be, but it's not the case. The people who run the country are the big donors, the billionaires, the same people who just convinced President Joe Biden to end his campaign for re-election. They're the people who run this country. If they could get him to end his campaign, they're basically the ones in charge. Same people. So their power somehow has to be limited.
And in the end of this conversation, the vital question I have is about the possibilities to unite people. What kind of values could actually do that, unite people, all human beings?
Socialist values. Socialism is based on the value of cooperation and solidarity among working people. Socialists in general care if there are people living in poverty across the other side of town. They feel motivated to do something about that, to help the people who are destitute do better. So China, socialist country with Chinese characteristics, is what they call themselves, spent decades and a tremendous amount of effort, time, and resources to bring 800 million Chinese people out of extreme poverty between 1949 and last year. Last year, they announced that there's no more extreme poverty in China. There are people who are poor, and still poverty there, but it's not destitution. It's not like they have nothing to eat and they can't live. So that was a tremendous accomplishment, and it came about through the efforts of the Communist Party of China, putting a lot of attention on ending poverty in their country. So that is an example, I think, for the whole world. The values that enable China to eliminate extreme poverty are the values that every country needs.
Thank you. That's a really good perspective.
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't really expect to have a quick answer to your question of values, but I just thought of it.
You can add something more, that's okay. But that was a good answer. I think it's really, China is a good example for all countries.
Yeah. So we just have to get the people in Washington to stop hating China for no reason and start working with them. And once that happens, that will be a big step toward peace in the world. But thank you for calling. I really enjoyed our conversation. And
thank you. Likewise,
okay.
I enjoyed it too, and I totally agree what you've said. And I hope that the world peace will come